Today we're talking to Sawyer, who lost nearly 80 pounds in under a year. But the catalyst wasn't a gym membership. It was a surgery that left his jaw wired shut for 6 weeks. He also tells us how eating in a surplus helped him, and he did all of this without using a single app. We're going to go through the journey from start to finish so you can pick out the pieces that apply to you. Let's get into it. So Sawyer, let's start with the snapshot. How much weight did you lose and how long did it take?
Okay. My name is Sawyer White. I am 33 years old and I am currently down 75, 77 pounds, kind of averaging over the last week. I'm sitting right in between 165 and 167, where at my largest, I was at 242 pounds was my biggest weigh-in. That weight loss journey has taken, right now we're at 11, pushing 12 months for the total time since I started dieting, which is an interesting story in itself, how I got started on this whole journey. But 1 year ago was my weigh-in at above 240.
I want to go back to before the weight loss started. Where was your head at?
Well, my health was just kind of in a tailspin. I was managing a restaurant while I was putting myself through school. I was studying physics and planetary science, and that was a pretty big course load. And I was also working in a restaurant where, accessibility to greasy, unhealthy food was at a peak. Um, my wife was pregnant with twins. I had these really big life changes that, were all just kind of in a confluence. And I had quit drinking and quit smoking cigarettes the year before. So food became my vice. And for, maybe this period of growth was about 18 months leading up to my weight loss journey, where I went from 190-ish pounds up to that 240. So I ballooned pretty quick. I was on blood pressure medication. Um, I have four sons. My oldest is 11, and there was a parent day in his soccer program. So they wanted all the parents to come out and play on the field with the kids. And I got out there and I ran 100 feet and I was tasting blood and doubled over. And I knew then that something had to change.
What was the immediate next step? And how long did it actually take to kick off your journey?
So this would have been around September or October last year when I was having that revelation. And I was already slated to have double jaw surgery in December. I had a pretty pronounced underbite my entire life. And I was set to have this jaw surgery. And the surgeon had been telling me, you're probably going to lose 20, 30 pounds through the process because you're going to be wired shut for 6 weeks. You're going to be eating through a 50 milliliter syringe with a little 1/8 inch of aquarium, air tubing that goes in between the fixtures in your mouth. And he no matter what you get in there, you're not going to be able to keep up calorically with where you're at now, is what I was told. So I knew that that was coming, and leading into the surgery, I started dialing back on how much I was eating. At first, it was just portion control. I didn't really monitor what I was eating. Um, but this was kind of a soft change. I wasn't recording anything. I wasn't doing anything more than making a conscious effort of, okay, I'm not going to have ice cream before bed. Eating at night was always a problem for me, so I really just kind of dialed back on the late night snacks, and that was my first change.
So once the wires came off and you healed up, did you try to go back to normal eating? Or how did you handle the transition?
So I never really got back to my standard diet that I had been eating previously. I did leave my position at the restaurant, so I no longer had the accessibility to, free fatty food all the time. And I did make another life change, which for my wife's work, we moved states. And it was just a total shakeup all at once. And I thought, okay, we're going to be moving. I'm going to be shifting what I'm doing in my career. Why don't I get a membership to a gym and change it all up and change my diet and just a new life, new me, new start. And the whole head to toe shakeup allowed me to put new habits in place. So returning to a standard diet, I returned to solid food, but I didn't return to what I had been eating before.
I'm curious about the vice aspects you mentioned, swapping smoking for food. Now that you've had so much success, does the
Hmm.
itch ever actually go away or is it still there?
So the cravings are still somewhat present. It is more of a dull itch, and I can absolutely liken that to nicotine use being the biggest one, where there are triggers. There's, little things that happen throughout the day where you feel the urge to indulge yourself in whatever it may be, in nicotine, in food, in these little vices, and those don't change in my experience. Those still happen. You develop the willpower, I suppose, or the determination, because motivation seems to be a limited resource, but determination seems to be a lot more long lasting. And when you have told yourself something very consistently, it absolutely does become an aspect of self. I am someone who can overcome an unhealthy urge.
Usually people say you have to take baby steps or you'll burn out, but did you ever feel like you were at risk for that?
I made that big life change all at once, and I hit the ground running when I moved states, and I'm very thankful. I have been a stay-at-home dad for the last 9 months, and that's been a really wonderful situation for me, for the kids. And I have the time where I can, take my kids to the gym for 2 hours in the morning and work on myself and my health and prioritize these things. But the change happened pretty instantaneously. It was once I made the decision, I stuck with it. It wasn't a gradual thing for me. And that is how I have accomplished things like quitting smoking after nearly 2 decades, and quitting drinking alcohol, where I used to be, I wouldn't say an alcoholic, but definitely use substances as a crutch to get through. You have a hard day at work, you are in a bad mood, whatever it is, you can fix that in a jiff. And making these major life changes for me has been instantaneous. The slip sliding effect of kind of doing a little bit less never really worked. It was one day I just had to come to the conclusion that I'm done with whatever it is.
Once you actually got into the gym routine, how were you measuring your progress?
Well, I got really okay. Maybe I did transition my vice, because now I got really addicted to the feeling of being stronger and seeing the number on the scale go down, and having more vitality and energy to play with my kids and chase them around. That became the new fix, was, and I think is a lot healthier than any of my prior vices.
You lost maybe 40 pounds before you started even going to the
I
gym?
think that's pretty close. Yeah, probably 30 to 40. At that point, I had moved to a high protein diet where I was consuming between zero point 0.8 and 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body mass each day. And I got a membership to Costco, and I would go to the bulk meats, and I would get tilapia, I would get chicken breast, I would get ground beef, and I would get pork shoulder. And I would portion and meal prep my proteins, and then I would just have rice and whatever veggies that I'd pick up.
Yeah, and you never got bored of these foods?
I became very familiar with the spice rack,
Ah,
and very low calorie or no calorie way to keep diversity in what you're eating.
how'd your eating look like on a typical day?
uh, I found it really helpful to front load protein in the day, and I would start with a big serving of Greek yogurt and a couple scrambled eggs. That was really, for how many calories it was and the volume of food, really satiating, in a way that if I was to have something like oatmeal or something more carb heavy, I have heard that loading on carbs, which I work out in the morning, loading on carbs before a workout is going to provide you more sustainable energy. But my experience is that having a lot of protein in the morning, even before that workout, was I was satiated throughout the day for longer and just felt better.
Did you take
Yeah.
any supplements?
Yeah, just a multivitamin. And I do take creatine
Hmm.
monohydrate, 5 grams daily, and just whey protein for after workout, about 50 grams.
How were you actually counting the calories? How did you determine to count the calories?
So let's see here. My formula to start was I took my weight times 10, and that was my baseline, without factoring how much cardio I was doing, for my maintenance calories that I would consume in one day. I would then take whatever came off of the treadmill or the bicycle, after a workout. You know, if it was 30 to 45 minutes and it was particularly intense, that might be 300 or 400 calories. I would tack that on to my weight. There's my maintenance calories. I'm gonna shoot on an average day for 3 to 500 under that. And I did not purchase a food scale. I read labels and I eyeballed to the best of my ability, which I'm a pretty good guesstimator. And I would measure things like dry cups of rice. And that was really about as in depth as I got. So I tried to stay in that 3 to 500 calorie deficit daily with a refuel day on my rest day. I worked out 6 days a week, and on my rest day, I would also refuel and eat in a surplus of 3 to 500 calories.
Oh, so you were actually eating in a surplus on your rest days, not just to maintenance.
Yeah, it was great. Yes. As for avoiding burnout, that was awesome. Because I could indulge and, eat a little bit more and reach that point of not just satiation, but feeling full, which is definitely how I ate before, doing any sort of intentional weight loss. So being able to feel full at least once a week and being able to eat full portions, definitely you knew that was coming, and it made the rest of the week easier.
It sounds like you had a lot of numbers dialed in pretty tight. Were you plugging these into an app like MyFitnessPal or something to keep track of?
Yes, I'm pretty analog. When I started, I just had a notebook and I would just, pen down however many ounces of non-fat Greek yogurt and 20 grams of honey. That equals this many calories for breakfast. And I just did that for the first couple months, and then either out of laziness or recognition that I was getting good at just, keeping a rough tally mentally, I stopped doing that, and today I'm loosely mentally tracking my calories.
Do you still count calories?
Yeah. Again, roughly. I look at packaging before I eat something. I'll do a quick Google if it is, coming from a fruit and vegetable stand, stuff like that. I monitor how much, butter or cooking oils that I use because I really haven't made any foods taboo. I have a big family. I cook for the family, and I don't expect them to follow the same diet that I'm following. So I'll cook for myself the post workout meal, which is really where I get the most calories, and then I will just have a smaller portion of whatever the rest of the family is eating for dinner. So no food was ever completely taboo. It was all just portion controlled on top of what I considered my diet.
There's so much conflicting advice out there. How did you sift through it all and find out what workout program to actually follow?
I am chronically online. And whenever I find something to hyperfixate on, I learn everything that I can. I dive in head first. Total side note. I'm a nerd. I play Dungeons and Dragons. I play with a group of adults. I also play with my older kids. And I got a 3D printer. I make the miniatures. I paint them. I make terrain out of foam. Top to bottom, I write the stories, I make music to go along with it. So when I find something that I really can pour myself into, I tend to go all out. And I just made fitness that same journey. So I started reading on a number of subreddits, and the algorithm picks up pretty quickly what it is you're interested in and what gets your engagement. And my TikTok feed got taken over pretty quick by people in the fitness community, and I just kind of synthesized the overall message that I picked up between a lot of different sources rather than finding one holy grail that I went with. And it was monitor calories in and calories out, monitor how much protein you're getting, and that it is what sources you're getting it from. And as far as a strength program and how much cardio I should be doing, that all that all came from the amalgamation of gym bro science that was being fed to me from all these different sources.
How did you identify misinformation?
Rather than relying on any one source for objective truth, I kind of just crowdsourced what was working for different people. And when I would go and click on someone's page and see that they had consistent results that were in line with what I wanted to do for myself, that was a deposit in the bank of this is what's going to work for me. And when enough deposits were made into the bank, I was like, I've got it. I've got a plan. This is great. And I went into it doing 30 to 45 minutes of cardio a day. And with the upper body training, I wasn't doing any lower body training or core strength training for the first month or so. That was when I was still, getting a better understanding of what was going to affect my physique overall. So I was doing what I knew from weights class in high school. But I picked up, I thought it was better to start with what I thought was the best idea than, sit in indecision, and I could modify it as I went.
So you've been pushing hard for almost a year now. Did you run into any injuries or setbacks along the way?
Yes. Yeah. Great question. Currently, I am recovering from a biceps tendon. I believe it's distal down in your elbow. I talked to my mother in law, who's a physical therapist, and she gave me some great advice. So I really just removed anything that was a supinated motion that required full use of the biceps. And I just found adjacent exercises that isolated the back as much as possible.
I hear this a lot from people who lose a significant amount of weight, that the world just starts treating them differently.
I noticed my relationships with acquaintances start to change the most. My inner circle, you definitely get some out of pocket comments, but people that you are acquaintances with and strangers, I have experienced a night and day difference in treatment you receive from people who have not taken the time to get to know you on a personal basis and are still operating on kind of, surface level assumptions that they make about you. And so many of those are relative to your appearance and your physique, in my experience, that that kind of treatment is totally different. And in a way that I didn't realize, there was an amount of prejudice, of fat prejudice, that I was experiencing before that.
Did it make you upset with them?
No, I wouldn't say I experienced anger. I think it's very human. Um,
Any self sabotage from people that were close to you?
I'm not a great person to ask this question to, because I did move states right when I started really affecting my diet. So the people that I had in my life on a daily basis before weren't the same people, the same new friends that I started making when I got down here. But the people that I surrounded myself with here in California have been very supportive.
What other tools did you use?
Public parks, public spaces in general. I got a jogging stroller for my kids, and I started mapping routes through the city where we could go and do things for free. So we went to a number of outdoor festivals and occurrences, and kind of utilizing things that were going on in the city around me, I think would probably be maybe it's a vague or offbeat answer, but some community awareness and involvement was also something that I kind of worked in there that wasn't there before. But no direct tools, nothing, no apps, no websites, nothing. Not a direct answer to the question I think you were asking.
What surprised you the most about this transformation?
Mental health. Of course, I was aware. It's often been pointed out, the link between mental health, but experiencing the shift in your patterns of thought that go along with a healthy lifestyle, it's really night and day. The fitness component has been the biggest lifestyle change that has had a positive impact on my life.
What did it feel like?
I can think so much more fluidly and clearly on a regular basis. There's a little bit less chatter.
How long did it take to notice?
I would say that it took about a month of working out that 5 to 6 times a week for things to really come online.
And by come
By
online,
come online,
what
I
do you
mean
mean?
start feeling the endorphin rush rather than the DOMS, the delayed onset muscle soreness, as the major thing you're walking away with from the gym.
Did you hit any plateaus?
I definitely hit a couple plateaus. So I started
Mm-hmm.
transitioning into more distance running than just incline walking or bicycling. That more intensive exercise helped me continue to drop pounds beyond there without adding any major amount of time to my workouts. I started doing some 10Ks, and I'm building up for a half marathon. That's going to be my longest run. Um, and doing these in a structured way, in citywide events and, sponsored events, I mean, and stuff like that, really helped with the determination factor. It's much easier just to hit the off button on a treadmill when you feel like you've done enough. But if I, sign myself up for a run for cancer or the animal shelter or whatever, I'm like, boy, I'm going to be an asshole if I don't finish this 10K. So I started doing stuff like that, and that helped me push through and get to where I'm at now.
Do you struggle with hunger itself now that you've been maintaining for a while?
Hunger has always been a thing. It's my ability to deal has gotten better. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I'd like to circle back to it, the determination versus willpower thing. And willpower might even be a misnomer in itself. A lot of the time, it's won't power. It is the ability to hold yourself back, to say no to something that you do like or you do want. But that is a limited resource. You can exhaust that if you are having to will yourself into doing or not doing something day in, day out. It is determination that truly has longevity. And I have been training that muscle above and beyond any of the physical ones. I like Andrew Huberman, and he did an interview with David Goggins recently that I watched, which I think sums up my thinking and how I would answer that question nicely. Um, by doing things that you don't want to do, by
Okay.
intentionally doing things that you know are good for yourself that you don't want to do. There's a little bit of stoicism built in there too. Like, I don't want to take a cold shower after workout, but it's good for your testosterone, and it really feels good to kind of shock your body. And when you walk out of that, you're going to feel great. So I'm going to go take a nice cold shower. God, I don't want to do that, but it's an exercise that I can do in conditioning myself to be comfortable with doing the uncomfortable.
Are you ever worried about gaining the weight back?
Yeah, it's a concern. It is a concern. I'm going to be doing my own graduate program come next fall. And when I resume school, and I don't have all the time that is afforded to me now while I'm a stay-at-home dad, I am concerned that some of these behaviors might slip. So really having the diet locked in, I think, is my first line of defense against regaining the weight. I don't know that I can, continue to maintain 12 hours a week to dedicate to physical fitness. But if I can keep at least half that and I can keep my diet in check, I think whatever, slippage occurs is something I can live with. Um, so it's, I have been preparing myself for that event when I know my lifestyle is going to have to change.
And how are you preparing? I mean, you did tell me a little bit, but do you have more specifics?
Um, when it comes down to the diet, meal prep, meal prep, meal prep, meal prep. If every single time your tummy rumbles, you go and rummage through the fridge, you are not going to follow your diet plan. You are not going to meet your macros. You're going to go over on calories. But if you have, and you just need to plan a couple days in advance. It doesn't need to be, anything really extraordinary. You don't have to spend hours doing this each week. But if you just have a few meals in advance and then you replenish that supply maybe once or twice a week, um, then you're going to stay on track. And continuing that habit is, I think, the most important to keep the weight off. That's what I'm focusing on.
If you had to give somebody a list of some quick tips to implement right away that you think will really start helping their journey, what would they be?
Um, get a gym buddy. Get a gym buddy. Get a Costco
Mm.
membership. I love Costco. They're bulk foods. You cannot beat the deals, and you just portion off and freeze what you can't eat within a few days. Get a rice cooker. Get an air fryer. Fill up the spice cabinet and read about how other cultures season their dishes and cook outside of your comfort zone.
Mm.
Mess up a meal or two. It's not a big deal. Um, yeah, those are my biggest takeaways that made the journey enjoyable. And I took everything to Reddit. I went to Reddit when I got to the Sacramento area, and I found a group to play Dungeons and Dragons with, and I found a couple of guys that I work out with on a recurring basis, and I've been able through a number of communities on the internet to crowdsource friends and support in all these different ventures.
That was Sawyer, but that was just one journey. I've captured many, and each one is unique because it's from a different perspective, context, and has different strategies. All of them ripe for you to pick the ones that work for you. Subscribe, and you'll get to see them as they're released. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.